my former boss. So for a little background here, I have played the drums for 11 years of my life, so I've gotten pretty decent at marching percussion and playing the drum set. I'm currently a college student who obviously needs money, so I took up 2 jobs that had to do with teaching drumming to kids. First job, which I only recently left because of the pandemic, was an amazing opportunity at a school district to be a part-time music teacher. I loved that job. This story has to do with the other music job I took up, which was at a non-profit that I don't want to name for legal reasons, that resides in my town. So, at this non-profit, there are 2 main coordinators in charge who happen to be an older married couple. The husband was in charge of the science and art side of the facility, while the wife, Bernice, was in charge of the music side of the facility. So, she was in all aspects my boss and also one of the piano teachers. I taught drum set with a high school friend of mine named Jay. There was a guitar teacher who I was also friends with named Ray, and an elderly piano teacher named Marie. So that was the entire music department at the facility. I started the job when their last drum set teacher suddenly left to pursue his dream career in the Bay Area. Bernice really needed me to start immediately, so I did, but during my interview, she had been very nice and cordial, but I sometimes noticed how rude she was to other employees. Most of the people working on the science side were merely high school students, and one of them may forget a small thing like forgetting to put a screwdriver back where it belonged, and she would degrade them. She would say things like, "How will you keep a job if you can't do simple things like this? Are you even using your brain? I should fire you for this kind of incompetency, but I won't because I'm a nice person." I would see this kind of stuff go down, and I could never say anything because honestly, I really didn't think it was my business and I didn't want to get yelled at either. I will also briefly explain that she also revealed that she was very religious and homophobic, and I was very obviously not straight. I tried to ignore these outbursts, but they started to get to me. I would try to talk to those kids afterwards and reassure them that they could only do their best and that should be good enough. A few months into the job, I even tried to talk to her about it, but that was a huge mistake. I said that maybe she shouldn't be so hard on them since they are still just kids. She had been cheerful and smiling, but once I finished that sentence, she got quiet. Her expression went blank, and her eyes turned cold. If looks could kill, I'm sure I would be very dead. After a few seconds of silence, she suddenly yelled, "Mind your business! Those ungrateful brats need to learn their place, and so do you!" I was absolutely stunned. I had no words. I have never been yelled like that by my boss in any of my jobs before, so it really just shook me. I just sat there with what I'm guessing was a look of shock. She then immediately went back to smiling and simply said, "I think you have a lesson with little Timmy in 5 minutes, don't you? Better get ready for it." And she said it with a fucking smile on her face, like, what the hell? I just got up and got ready for my next lesson. After that, I began to get yelled at by her pretty much every week for the smallest thing. Maybe if I finished a lesson a minute early or I forgot to fill in my timesheet right away. I endured months of this until finally I had enough. I lasted a year and a half until I finally quit. When I quit, she encouraged me to call or text any time, which seemed so odd considering she had yelled at me every day for the last week I worked. I thanked her for the opportunity she gave me and left without incident. Or at least I thought it was without incident. Before I left my position, I recommended to a parent to have their kid get lessons from a friend of mine because her son was an absolute musical prodigy who needed more intense training to grow as a musician. She thanked me and I connected them, and he is actually still getting lessons with my friend, and I get occasional videos of his progress, and I'm just so proud of him. Only 10 and he can outplay me easily on drum set. However, the mother of the student accidentally told Bernice the reason why her son was leaving the nonprofit and said that I had recommended it. That happened in the middle of January 2020. By the end of January, my email inbox had been flooded with emails from Bernice. They ranged from her needing me to come back to sign a form to obviously being mad about recommending the student leave the nonprofit. Every day, there were at least 10 emails, and on bad days, there were upwards of 30 emails. I blocked her email after 2 weeks because I knew it just wasn't going to stop, and I finally had some relief. Then I noticed she tried to friend me on Facebook and follow me on Instagram. When I blocked those accounts, it was her husband's accounts that tried. I then blocked those as well. She tried it again and used the nonprofit's social media pages to follow me. I had no idea why she was being so persistent and did not know what to do. It seemed to calm down, so I thought she gave up, but a week later, I had random accounts trying to follow me on all my social media. I asked my friends that I had worked with if they could see her doing this while she was in the office. So Jay and Ray went into the office when she had a lesson and looked on her monitors, and there were a bunch of tabs open. They sent me snaps of what they found, and all these tabs were the different faceless accounts on Facebook and Instagram that had been attempting to follow me. They closed them all out, and when she asked about it, they feigned ignorance and said they had been looking for sheet music and the tabs had accidentally been closed. They said she looked super pissed, but then suddenly asked them they had me on social media, and they just said they didn't know and tried to walk out. Before they walked out, she asked them if they would tell her what lies I had told them, and they said she didn't know what she was talking about. She got even more pissed and yelled at them to stop acting stupid and to tell the truth, and they told her again that I never said anything about her or the nonprofit. She suddenly went on a whole tangent about how I was gonna steal all the students and the nonprofit would have to shut down. From here, she never spoke to them again about it. But after this, I did notice I started seeing her whenever I went to Walmart in town to get groceries and such. I'm telling you, 8 times out of 10 that I would go there, she would be there. She never spoke a word to me, but she always just kind of lurked. One day, my younger sister said Bernice spoke to her while she was at the McDonald's inside the Walmart when she went after school to grab food with her friends. Luckily, my sister knew who she was, so she knew not to give any information to her when she asked if she was my sister and how I was doing. My sister kindly said she didn't know who she was and didn't feel comfortable talking to her, and then proceeded to ignore her. Bernice just smiled and then left. But my sister called me shortly afterwards and asked to be picked up from Walmart because she rightfully felt super uncomfortable. I sped over from my college and got there within 15 minutes, and she ran out and got in my car and we sped off. As I left the parking lot, I could see Bernice's car had pulled out of a space and was following us. I knew it was her car because I had seen it every time I went to work, and it had a logo for the nonprofit on the side of it, so it was hard to miss. I realized she had been waiting in the space to either follow my sister back to the school, or in this case, follow me, who had picked her up. I drive a bright red Honda Civic, so it's pretty easy to see even from a distance. So I knew I had to lose this crazy lady because I had no idea what her intentions were. So I decided to take some side streets and drive all kinds of random ways through our town. And then I even got on the highway that takes you to the closest major city and then got off a random country road. It was insane because this woman was persistent as hell. She caught up and kept up with me until I got to the highway. Once I got on, I easily was doing 80 to 90 miles an hour and weaving in and out of traffic to lose her, and eventually I did. I then parked in between some orchards off one of the country roads I took. My sister had been on the phone with her mom the entire time, who had then proceeded to let our town's police know. We got on the phone with them and they told us to drive to the police station and there would be someone waiting to help us. So I made my way back to town while constantly checking my mirrors for Bernice. We made it, and I gave a statement and they made a report and then asked me to describe the car. Said it was a burgundy SUV with a nonprofit's logo on the side. They said it should be easy to find and that they went straight to the nonprofit to find her. Sadly, Bernice had an alibi waiting for them when they got there. She showed them the security footage of the front of the facility, and the burgundy SUV with the logo had been sitting in its spot since she opened, so there was no way she could have followed me according to the police. They said there was nothing more they could do, and it was left at that. But I knew what I had seen. It was messing with my mind for days until I finally got my answer on how the hell she pulled off that stunt. Jay informed me 2 weeks later that Bernice had announced they had bought an identical SUV with a logo and everything for the nonprofit. I was stunned. It was the same make, model, and color of the other SUV. Even the license plates were almost identical, only having 2 digits differ from the original. Bernice had played the cops into thinking I just had an overactive imagination. She knew exactly what she was doing. I was just so frustrated by this point. Eventually, I emailed her and told her to stay away from my family and I because I was never going to be talking to her again, and clarified that I had no intention of taking any students from her. Hell, I'm not even a goddamn music major, so why would I even want to continue doing anything music oriented? Her reply was almost instantaneous. Sounds good, dear. You take care now, and be sure to tell your sister that I said hi.